and I'm the founder of the F rating, which is a rating which champions women in film and is used by IMDb and about 80 other film festivals and cinemas. I just want to let you know that we're going to be done by 8 o'clock, so everybody can go out and clap for carers or boo for Boris, depending on your preferences. And I'm thrilled to be able to introduce these amazing people who are just some of the talented people behind Misbehaviour. First of all, we have Philippa Lowthorpe. She directed Misbehaviour, and Philippa was both the first and the second woman ever to win a BAFTA Television Craft Award for Best Director, and is still the only woman to have won that award. You will know her from directing The Crown and Call the Midwife and the amazing Three Girls. And if you are a FilmBath regular, you may have met her when she came to talk about at our previous screening of Swallows and Amazons, and she's also been one of our IMDb award judges. So welcome to you, Philippa.
Hi everyone, and thank you for joining this wonderful Q&A. Thank you, Holly.
We also have Úna Ní Dhonghaíle, who has won more awards than it is possible to list. We'd be here all night. But particularly she's won both the BAFTA and the RTS award for Best Fiction Editing for Three Girls, which she worked on with Philippa. As well as Three Girls, Una is known for her work on The Crown and Warlander, as well as Stan and Ollie, which you've probably seen. And she's currently working on Death in the Nile with Kenneth Branagh. Welcome to you, Una.
Yeah, thank you, Holly.
And finally, we've got Gaby Chiappe, who is a very experienced television writer. Gaby's written extensively for loads and loads. Most television that you've ever heard of, Gaby has written for. But she's especially known for Shetland, The Level and Vera. And Gaby wrote the screenplay for Their Finest, which we also previewed at FilmBath. Welcome to you, Gaby.
Ollie, thank you. It's lovely to be here.
And Philippa, I would like to start with you, and if you can tell us how you came to Misbehaviour, tell us a bit of the backstory of the film.
Well, I was invited to be part of the Misbehaviour team by producer Suzanne Mackey and our other writer Rebecca Frame. And a long time ago, about 10 years ago, they heard a radio programme on Radio 4 called The Reunion, in which some of the Women's Liberation members and Jennifer Hostin, who went on to win Miss World, came back together with Michael Aspel to discuss the events of 1970. And Suzanne was sitting in her kitchen and thought, my God, this would make an amazing film. And Rebecca was sitting in her kitchen, also thinking the same thing. And they got together and developed this script over quite a few years. And then I was invited to be part of the team about 3 years ago, in which Gaby also entered the team a little bit before me. But then we worked together on the script. I worked with Rebecca and with Gaby, developing the script further. And so 10 years since the first germ of that idea, the film came out in our screens and banged into the pandemic, but that's another story. But yeah, it was a long period of development.
I know, it's such a shame that it came out the week before, didn't it? It was the week before shutdown.
Yes, it did. We had our wonderful premiere a few days before the release on the Friday, and by Monday the cinemas were starting to close. By Tuesday they'd all closed. So yeah, what a shame after all those years of work. But we are just so grateful that people have been able to see the film in their own homes. That's been extremely gratifying for us, having put all that work into it. We really still want people to watch it. So that's been great.
Brilliant. And Gaby, tell me about when you first came to the film.
Well, I read the script that Rebecca had written, which I inherited, which was so exciting when I read it. And I remember thinking, yes, that I was very lucky to be asked to come on board. And I remember watching I read the script, and then I was given a lot of material, including the actual footage of that Miss World, which I sat and watched with my husband, and we just had our mouths open at it's how extraordinary it was. What the competition itself, and the moment where the disruption happens, how exciting that is. So yes, that's how I got on board, and I was felt lucky the whole way through. Very lucky to be working with Philippa, which was a real joy. Una and I both miss her a lot separately.
I bet you do. And Una, tell me when you started on this.
So Philippa and I were working together on, I think, The Crown, whenever Philippa first mentioned the script, possibly even 3 Girls, but I think it was really The Crown when she was working quite intensively with Gaby and Rebecca and everyone. And so then I knew about it, and then I was cutting Les Miserables, and I did a low-budget Roddy Doyle from Rosie, and I kept tabs with Philippa because it always looked like whether or not we would be greenlit in time in the autumn 2018. Is that right? 2018? 2019? 2018.
2018, yeah.
2018. So the short story is, thank goodness, Philippa kept me in the loop, and she had shared a lot. I mean, I love working with Philippa anyway, so I knew she was going to do justice to the story, but I love the story. And like Gaby, I had seen that archive, and I had read early drafts and had spoken with Philippa about her vision. So I just was really excited to be involved. So I was just holding out with our fingers crossed until we got the absolutely green light. And then I finished All Is True, I think, on Sunday, the 25th of November, or 24th of November, whichever those dates are. And Philippa began shooting on Monday, the 26th of November, or 25th, whichever. I have to look at my calendar. So it was great. So I went straight on to Philippa's Misbehaviour, and we were really so excited when Keira Knightley joined. And so Philippa and myself stayed in communication because we're friends as well, as she was doing the casting and all the exciting actors who were joining the team.
So yeah, it's Philippa. Go on.
Holly, I kept saying to Una, because the thing about financing films is very tricky, and you have to have wonderful actors to get your pieces of finance together. And I kept saying to Una, it's not green lit, but the green light is winking. The green light is winking all the time, just so that she wouldn't go off and do somebody else's project.
And you know what? There was a little bit of serendipity because Death on the Nile was sort of on the table, and then fortunately that got pushed back. So then I was able to do Misbehaviour. Because I did end up saying to them as well that the green light was winking, and the green light went on. Thankfully, and then I got all eggs in one basket.
Brilliant. It's great when it all works out. And Philippa, how did you get that cast? The cast is amazing. So tell me.
We were absolutely thrilled with our cast. We worked with an amazing casting director called Nina Gold, who I met when I was working on The Crown, and she is one of the best casting directors in the world, not even in the UK. So she really is something. And she and I worked together on Misbehaviour with our producer, Suzanne, and brought together this amazing cast. And our 2 linchpin pieces of casting to set the ball rolling were Keira Knightley and Gugu Mbatha-Raw. Those 2 women, you piece together your casting around your central core people, and they were our central core people. And I remember when we sent off the script to both of them, you sort of cross your fingers and you just hope and pray that they read it, and you're sort of wandering around in your house cooking for your kids, thinking, God, I wonder if they're reading it now, It's very exciting. And then when they both really liked it and wanted to meet me, I thought, oh, we're in with a chance here that they will say yes. So I met both of them and had a brilliant conversation with both of them, and then they said yes. So that was absolutely fantastic. And then around them, the rest of the cast were assembled. Wonderful people like Leslie Manville, who plays Dolores Hope, so brilliant. Keely Hawes, Rhys Ifans, Greg Kinnear, just a stupendous cast of women, of women and 2 men, brilliant.
And they were good, the men.
The men are good, and also wonderful supporting actors we had, like Miles Jupp, who played one of the Mecca men, just delightful, and another wonderful actress, Katie Carmichael, played the Mecca woman. All these wonderful actors wanted to be in the film, and that was very, very special for us.
And Gaby, did you know who was cast? Did you have those voices in your head when you were writing?
Not when I was writing, no. But as they came in, as the casting fell into place, Philippa would ring me up and it would all get very, very exciting because I'm writing in a room on my own in Leeds, a long way from all the glamour. And so this sort of news would come in that Keeley Hawes was doing it, Kira and Jessie Buckley, and it was just, yes, I'd get really excited and hop around a bit. And then I'd try and get lots of clips on the internet and listen to those voices. And then it would start feeding in. But when it was being put together, when Rebecca started, she, it was such a long time ago, she wouldn't have had any idea. And when I joined, I didn't have any idea either. So you're sort of writing in the dark, but you know who those people are. And so you're just trying to write truthfully to those people and hope that, and then when the actors come and inhabit that's incredibly exciting. It's like somebody putting on a costume that's just been lying on the floor doing nothing, and suddenly it's up and it's moving and it's three-dimensional, it's real.
It must be amazing. And Una, were there people that you wanted to keep on screen because you were enjoying them so much that you didn't want to cut them out?
Well, Rhys Ifans and Miles Jupp gave us such a giggle. I mean, the Rushes, we could make a fortune out of the Rushes because they were so funny. And they used the dialogue and they improvised as well. The attitude was just, everyone was just brilliant. It was a real privilege actually to edit Misbehaviour because all of those actors are just top notch. And as I know Philippa has said this in previous times, but even the young actors like Louise Harrison, who plays Pearl, everyone was just, it was like the bar kept being raised by everyone and everyone was meeting that challenge, including us. We had to keep following their lead.
I think that's what's so brilliant about Nina Gold's casting is that she cares about the stars and getting those people, but she absolutely cares about every single little part. So as Una was saying, Louise Harrison, who played Pearl in Miss Africa South, had never done anything really before. And so we've met a lot of people for that part and finding just the right person. And the wonderful young actor, Emma Corrin, who plays Miss South Africa, for instance, she's now gone on to play Princess Diana in The Crown. We had this wonderful young actor being Miss South Africa in our film first. And that's what I love about working with Nina. She takes such meticulous care over casting absolutely everybody. And I think that shows in the piece that you get in the end. There's no false note anywhere.
And tell me, Philippa, about, I know that you met the original women, but tell me about them, meeting them, you and them.
The women who are the original women, who are the women's liberation people, Sally Alexander, Jo Robinson and Sarah, Sue, Jenny, all of those women were absolutely crucial to the making of this film. We could not have made this film without them. Rebecca met them many years ago when she first started working on it and creating this story. And then when I started, because I come from a documentary background, I always loved to meet the real people. And so Rebecca and I went to meet them and spent a lot of time with them, listening to their stories and absorbing more things they told us, new things that got absorbed into the scripting process, which then Gaby took on. And really, honestly, we couldn't have made it without them. We wouldn't have known about the fact that Jo and all those women had the commune in Grosvenor Avenue. It was just incredible. And then also not just those women, but also Jennifer Hoston herself. We spent a lot of time talking to her and to Pearl in South Africa. We had to find Pearl. I was really determined to find Pearl. It became my mission during the script process because she was there in the script, but she wasn't there as fully, was she, Gaby? She was part of the story, but not a big part. And I just had this hunch. I thought it's so interesting that those two women won and came second, that she must be very important. So by some stealth work by a wonderful a young researcher in Left Bank Pictures, who were the producers of the film, we found a contact for Pearl and found her living in the same house she'd lived in, I think, practically since she'd gone back to South Africa. And she was so surprised that we wanted to make this film, including her. And then every morning for a week, I spoke to her on the phone, and I was madly scribbling down everything she told me. And then that got put back into the script by Gaby. And her story in the film is very important and very poignant. And then, her presence in the film is fantastic, I think.
And it really frames the anti-apartheid story alongside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the real, all the real women, the contestants and the Libbers were crucial to us, and we wanted to honour them. We wouldn't have been able to do the stuff that we've done as women if those women like Sally Alexander and Jo and all of that crowd haven't stood up for us and fought for our rights. So it felt a very important thing to celebrate them and their first direct action that they took.
It was brilliant. And Gaby, tell me about original source material and your script. I watched it for the third time last night, and I kept wanting to say, so Gaby, was that line a real line, or was that line one of your lines?
The research came from so many different places. Well, there was Rebecca's script. There was loads in that. There was all the stuff that Philippa was feeding back. So, like when she talked to Pearl, there were some amazing things which came in quite like Pearl saying before she got on the plane to leave South Africa, they literally showed her photographs of people that she was not to talk to. That was all from Pearl, which went straight, directly into the script. And then there was a lot of archive stuff online and reading. There's a book called Once a Feminist by Micheline Wandel, which has got interviews with a lot of the women who were involved in the Women's Liberation Group, and that was very interesting because one's own moment, you're formed in your own moment, and you sometimes forget that actually feminism changes quite a lot. So the things that were preoccupations for me when I was that age in the 80s were not the same, and to try and make it so specific to that historical moment, we worked really hard at, didn't we, Philippa? And trying to show what Sally was objecting to in her mother's life, for example, because those things have changed. They're not the same now. Feminism is different. So all of those things fed in from lots of different places, but the voices of the women themselves were so clear. And yes, a lot of that is directly from them. From there.
But I have to say as well, something that it is a drama. It's a drama based on a true story, but it is a drama. It's not a documentary. So there are invented scenes in there which are really important to the drama. Really important, like the scene when Sally Alexander's character meets Jennifer Hoston in the bathroom at the end. That is an invent. I mean, that many of the scenes are invented, but that is an invented scene. But it's very, very important for the drama to have that scene when those two sides come together. And lots of people have mentioned how much they love that scene, I think. And then one of the things that I loved about Rebecca's script when I first read it was her portrayal of Bob Hope. And Gaby also has always talked about how much she enjoyed that. And it was very, very witty. Very funny, and also the way she captured Rhys Ifans' character, Eric Morley. Yeah, there was so much fun to have with those characters, and looking back at the real archive of Eric doing those rehearsals, that all came from real archive, from a 1968 documentary on Man Alive, with Eric, the real Eric, parading in his crown and his cloak,
I do. Walking, always walking. Now, Úna, I've got a question that I'm coming to you in 1 second. But Philippa, what you've just said raises a question that one of our audience members has sent in. So Joe Crow says, were there times when the desire for strong narrative conflicted with historical truth?
We were not making a documentary. We were making a drama. So in a drama based on a real story, you are allowed to take liberties and create a narrative. And, for instance, if we'd have made a documentary, it would have probably lasted about 30 hours. So you have to condense it and make it into an exciting story. But I would say that every scene has a basis of truth in it. Even the scene, for instance, I've just said was a fictional scene with Jennifer and Sally in the bathroom. Sally told us, the real Sally, told us this fantastic story that when she was carried out by the 4 policemen and she was going down the corridor and struggling, quite a few of the contestants ran out behind her and shouted at the police, put her down, stop hurting her, blah, blah, blah. So that gave us the idea to have that encounter. So that's what you have to do, I think. Whereas in other work that maybe Una and I have done, which is a more factually based drama, you are more, you can't invent as many. But for this story, we had to invent certain scenes to make the drama work, and I think that's fine.
Of course. And yeah. Una, tell me, so you've bookended the film with archive. Tell me about that.
So in the process of shooting, I suppose, when Philippa was still shooting, her 2 days of Vietnam were the last 2 days of the shoot. So what we did was, she had shot Sally, or Keira Knightley, waiting for the university scene. So we cut basically the archive, the real archive of Bob Hope and the real archive of the GIs. We interwove it with Sally's material, did sound design, bit of music, and then I was able to send that back to Philippa, and then Philippa could respond because she had seen all the archive as well. And then she could say, well, I really like that bit, but let's change that one. So we started to fine cut basically the archive, which was a placeholder for Philippa to sort of explore, like her lookbook, which I hope she does have handy nearby her, so that she could actually really explore, okay, what could we use? Because, of course, when you're doing Vietnam and on a sort of a smaller budget film with a 2-day shoot with however many extras, which was a very limited number of extras, we had to be really judicious in choosing the right archive that could represent Vietnam. And before Greg Kinnear began the shoot, we actually used just Bob Hope as our placeholder. And that really helped us find the tone. And Philippa kept saying to me, make the music, cool. That was a really good note from a director to find this really cool music. And it helped Philippa feeding back to me. So by the time Philippa shot the scene in Vietnam, she had really worked it through and crafted, and she knew what she needed to shoot. So that helps as a conversation between the real archive, and we had Victoria Stable as our archivist. So if we felt like, if Philippa was feeding back to me, I need more fun or more wider shots or more colour so that it could fit in with our footage, then Victoria was wonderful. She was going back and feeding more footage back because, of course, so much back then was black and white as well. So it was a real force of...
Yeah, it was always our intention to begin the film with archive and end with archive, just because it is a real story, and that you can go and see, anybody can go and look up Bob Hope on YouTube and see these clips of him, quite extraordinary. And it was so helpful to have this little edit that Una had done of Bob Hope for when I was filming, because we had to make our footage blend in with real archive, and that was a tricky thing to do. So it was excellent to have that.
Yeah, really hard. And Philippa, so you had a lookbook. Was that something that you created as you started? And how different, so the film that you had in your head when you started and the film that we've all watched, are they the same?
That's a good question. Whenever I do a film or make a film, I love using visual references to build up the world. And I think the job of a director is to create the world into which the script can then live and breathe. And so I usually do this. I've got my handy lookbook with me. This is my lookbook. And this is obviously got lots and lots of input from the production designer as well. But we used a lot of street photography for our references rather than other films. So it's full of wonderful photographs like this. I don't know if everybody can see. And these photographs, which are from that time, showing us, really inspiring. This is Eric Morley doing his rehearsals. And this is the woman in the middle is at the Women's Liberation Conference in Ruskin, which is from our first seen in our film. So it's just, we had to create our world. This is a beautiful picture of Jennifer Hoston. There she is in her, that's the dress that we recreated for the event, the Miss World competition at the end. And because it was based on a real story, we just had to, we wanted to get lots and lots of material. This is the picture of the men in the crash at the Ruskin. So it's just an absolute Bible for us all. Pages and pages and pages of work have gone into that. And it's a very precious document. I never want to lose that. I have one for every film I've done.
That's so gorgeous. And so, Gaby, did Philippa share that with you? Did you have those images in your head when you were writing?
Yes, I had a lot of them. Yeah.
And so this sparks another question from so this is from Col Needham, who is the CEO of IMDb, who you've all met because you've been fellow judges at the IMDb Awards. And he's just rewatched Misbehaviour for the third time with all of his family. And he says, what were some of the challenges of maintaining an authentic 1970s environment on screen from a shooting perspective and then from an editing perspective? And he says, he's just watched a film from the 70s and he thought that Misbehaviour did a really great job of kind of encapsulating the era. So can I ask you first, Una, about it from an editing perspective?
Yes. And can we send our love to Cole and Karen and the family? Well, Philippa is brilliant, I think, because she's very collaborative and shares that lookbook, which a lot of directors mightn't share that lookbook with the editors. So I knew from Philippa, from what she was telling me, even before she was shooting, the type of energy that she wanted to capture and the way she was shooting it. And what I really love about Philippa's work as well is that she always has not only the principal actors doing stuff, but the actors who might be, in the background or who are, sorry, I'm putting my hand before the camera, the secondary or actors or the background actors, so they're all working. So then as an editor, I'm watching the material and it actually helps me then just pull it together because I can interpret what Philippa is looking to do with the energy with which she shot it. So I think the 70s films, while we're in lockdown, I've been watching Serpico and the Verdict and a couple of those films as well. And I was equally saying I love the 70s era of filmmaking because there was a real social realism and a real vitality that I think Philippa and Zach Nicholson and the team captured with Misbehaviour. And then as an editor, we're sort of being inspired by the rushes that we have at our hands to try and weave it together and follow those performances and add sound design or music to it that could add to that feeling of being with those people at that moment in time so the audience can feel the same. So I think it's a wonderful genre, 1970s films. And I think, as an editor, it was a real privilege to just jump right in there. And the other thing that Philippa does, which I like, is always saying, just keep cutting, get that energy so we could really be fearless in the way we approach scenes and not have to be too worried about being, I suppose, too reverent to feminism. That it was a story about people and to tell the story, because when you meet the real women, they're so full of energy that they are inspiring. So that helped as well to keep that energy alive, that rebellion of those women. If we had been with them in the 70s, we would have been right there beside them, I hope.
Absolutely. And Philippa, have you got anything to add to that about encapsulating the 70s?
I think it goes back to my lookbook again. I mean, we just did so much research. I'm going to flick it again. I just think this was how we did it. We found all of these references. These are the beauty references. We just made sure that we had delved into the archive of 1970 and kind of absorbed it all, drunk it all in, and the colours. We worked very hard on all the colours that they would have been around that time. And 1970 is a very specific time for costume as well. So it's the end of the 60s, but it's before all that psychedelic sort of groovy mid-70s stuff. So the costume designer, the makeup designer and the production designer were all really, really careful about creating that feel. Kira's dress is the
most beautiful item of clothing I think I've ever seen.
You mean the one at the
the one she wears to the one that she wears?
It's a stunning dress. It's made out of pieces of suede, that dress, and it's from an original 1970 design, which was made specially for Keira. It is absolutely stunning, isn't it?
It's amazing. Did you keep it?
It wasn't. I don't think she was allowed to keep it.
And Gaby, so how did you approach the language in a specifically 70s way, or did you write it for a modern audience?
I was trying to write it, I think we were trying to get it to be accessible for a modern audience, but without making concessions. So there were some things that Philippa and I were very excited about. So the word individualist, which is not really used as an insult now, but was absolutely then. Words like, we didn't use it in the end, but pamphleteer,
sloganising.
Sloganising, yeah.
If you steep yourself, if you're reading and watching those things, that stuff starts to sink in, and you want to use it. And sometimes it was difficult because those words are not immediately intelligible now. So there were a few things we struggled with that we really wanted to use, but in the end they had to come with too much explanation. So some things got lost. But no, we were trying to use the language of the moment in all ways, you know.
We had a lot. I remember really wanting a word in that the Angry Brigade about I forgot what it was now. At the time, that word was so important, and I argued and fought for this word to be in the script, but we can't even remember what it was now.
A couple of things. We argued ourselves, you know, on the same side. We were arguing, saying,
we were arguing
not with each other. We were saying that it's imperative that we have this. But no.
I think, Holly, the other thing that Misbehaviour does really beautifully, which is a 70s style, is the reality of the sound. I think the sound design is really rich, and not being too dependent on music all the time to drive the film, but that the story and the energy of the storytelling drives the film. And that, because sometimes you can see in some films, music might dominate a lot, whereas here it's like the 70s, where those films really have that social realism, and when the music comes in, it's quite powerful, but it's not overused.
Yeah, and Una's very correct in the what she says about the energy of the real women. Those women in their 20s really felt like revolutionaries, and they speak about it even today, that they had this tremendous energy and zest for life and sense of humour. And sometimes our view of early feminism is to be very serious people sitting in rooms and being very harsh and dour. And it doesn't feel like that. When you talk to the real women, they had a lot of fun. You know, to do the thing like go and invade the Miss World competition is a very witty, funny act to do, isn't it? It's like, and to stuff their pockets with flower bombs and water pistols. That in itself has so much wit and zest for life in it. And, you know, you can't treat that with too much reverence or seriousness, as Una said. And they had so much energy, and that was very much what we wanted to capture with our handheld camera work. Not making them all sort of sit in a row, but just get that life going, because that's what they feel like. They still feel like that now, those women.
And even in the Women's Lib meetings, Philippa shot some of those meetings where she whip pans, and in the cutting we kept some of those whip pans. When someone's talking, the other person interrupts and the camera can whip to them. And that also keeps that idea that was a room full of brilliant women with your brains on fire, and they were all talking and could interrupt each other and keep going. And I think that was great that they captured that in the shooting.
Yeah, it was amazing. And of course, it's patriarchy that makes us think that they were all awful, men-hating, bra-burning, hairy, ugly women, because we can't think that they're funny, witty, artistic revolutionaries. Yeah. Sorry, now I've been sidetracked by feminism in general. So I'll ask you a general kind of feminist question, which is, did kind of getting really involved in that early second wave feminism change your feminism? And one of the things that I loved about the film was how many different aspects of feminism you had, because you had the activists who were themselves different, but also working together, which is really nice, because in feminism, all too often it can be warring against one another because you care so much about what you're fighting for. So I love that they work together. But you also had the three generations of women who were differently, well, the mother's wasn't really a feminist, but the other two. And then you had the men helping with the creche, which is another thing which I've heard about but never experienced. So yes, so tell me, did being immersed in that world change you?
I think one thing, this isn't quite what your question is yet, Holly, but one of the things that was so important about this film was to show different points of view. It was very, very important for us that we didn't come down on the side of the feminists. We really showed the point of view of the contestants as well. And we got into the minds of Jennifer and Pearl and the other contestants, some of whom came from very low socioeconomic backgrounds like Miss USA. You know, for those women, it was a way of getting out of their lives and doing something new, because across the world, opportunities for women were so limited, and we didn't want to criticise those women for entering a beauty contest because that's what they had in front of them, or that was their opportunity, as much as we wanted to honour those women who were the feminists, who often had been chucked out by their families, who wanted them to go off and get married and not have kids. You know, a lot of those women had had a tough time. That's why they ended up living in Grosvenor Avenue. That was their new family. They'd been rejected by their family. So, you know, we really, really wanted to see all those different points of view, and the point of view of Leslie Manville's character Dolores being married to a philanderer, Bob Hope, and Julia Morley, who was a businesswoman in her own right, even though she was doing this very old-fashioned beauty contest. So we really wanted to get all those different points of view in there, and that was very important. Very, very hard to do, wasn't it, Gaby? A hard thing to achieve.
Yeah, and Gaby, tell us a bit more about that, because you do... I love that it doesn't set anybody up against each other, really. I mean, it sets everybody up against patriarchy, but it doesn't set the characters up. They are generous with one another. Was that hard or easy?
It wasn't hard to make you just had to be true to what people are like, I think, and then what you get is generosity, particularly the women themselves, the protesters who said they didn't blame the contestants. That wasn't the point. They were at pains to say that, so it would have been really wrong to make that differently, and to set the women against each other would have been a terrible thing. And part of the kind of amazing cultural clash that competition is all these totally different ways of looking at the world meeting each other in the same place and just going boom. But to make that really happen, you can't shave bits off people to make them fit into sort of goody-baddie shape. They have to be what they were, otherwise the boom doesn't happen. It's just a sort of...
Yeah. Also, that story of Miss World 1970 was an absolute gift for us to explore all those different points of view. It was just such a strange, conflagration of events that the feminists were storming the stage at the same time as the first black woman won and another woman of colour came second. It was like a kind of amazing gift for a storyteller to suddenly have to explore all those different things. While outside the Anglo Brigade were busy trying to blow it up, and the anti-apartheid movement were also banging on the doors of Mecca. So it just felt like the Miss World competition was a lightning conductor for many protests.
Which I think Rebecca had spotted, and, that was all absolutely patterned into the script.
It was. Rebecca had done an amazing job of all that heavy lifting, of working out all those different stories and putting them into a shape, which was very entertaining and very funny. And you could just see, wow, this just could be amazing. You're absolutely right there.
And Úna, what was it like feeding all of those threads together so that they all carry weight and make sense?
Well, as Philippa and Gaby said, it was because it was written so beautifully, actually, and had so much time spent on it from the early days of Rebecca and Suzanne right up to the shoot. It just felt like that interweaving of all the stories actually had been achieved in the script. So say for Philippa and I, when the script is so good, it means that your job, I think, as a director, you've done a lot of the good due diligence before you begin shooting. So for the editor, you don't have the script challenges that you might have if you go into shooting a script that isn't ready yet. So for us, it was actually great fun because we did, like what you said, it was really an honour to work on the film because of the real people being such amazing people in their own right, and having the privilege of meeting the real livers as well as Pearl and Jennifer. It just made you feel like it was really important to tell their stories. And I think just to mention Eric Morley, I like Eric Morley's character and Julie Morley, and I love the fact that the film actually celebrates them, and they loved their product. They loved Miss World, and they were doing good, as Philippa said, as a businesswoman. They were doing the best for what they wanted to show of the celebration of womanhood. They were of their time. So I like the fact that the film doesn't make any judgments, actually, and is generous towards the different characters. And once you follow we did have a challenge because the script was so good that when you are trying to hone it and bring it down to length, invariably you might have to lose some little strands. And that did obviously happen, as would happen with any film. But there was enough brilliant things in it that we found that although we shortened, it just was being distilled into gold. We weren't losing necessarily. The first cut, it was quite long in comparison to the finished film, and we really loved it as well. But the finished film actually has a natural flow and pace and just allows all those stories to come together.
Yeah.
Say something about that couple, Eric and Julie Morley. That's one of the things that makes that historical moment so interesting because it's so contradictory and the contradictions are in that couple. So there's Eric Morley, who came up with the idea of a bikini competition years before, putting out Miss World, which, a lot of the women involved felt the protesters would have called a cattle market, while being married to a woman who he supported in being a businesswoman, and their marriage seems to have sort of absolutely accommodated that. So the kind of different views of womanhood with it, what's possible for a woman within that, are wildly at odds with each other, and that's contained within one short man. Which is really interesting. Why would you try and make him into a complete villain? Isn't it more interesting that even people like that who represent a quite extreme form of patriarchy are contradictory? There are things that don't fit. And so anyway, that was really exciting about that pair.
Yeah. And their love shone through. So I know Julie Morley is still alive and well, and I would hope that we've done them justice because we have so many nice scenes between the two of them where you can see that there is a wit and love shared between them, which is good, I think, to show the different sides of women.
So we did also have a question from somebody asking whether Julia Morley had seen the film or whether you'd heard anything from her.
She has seen the film and she very much liked it. And she did say there were a few inaccuracies, but she really liked it and she completely supported us. She supported the film, actually. She gave us a thumbs up. I must say we're actually meeting Julia Morley for the first time after we'd finished the film. She is the most impressive woman, so clever, and also does so much for charity all over the world. She still is very much involved in this world, but again, she's 80 and an incredibly impressive person, I have to say.
So that was a question from Violetta Payne, who also said, it's been exactly 50 years since the events depicted in the film. So much progress has been made. Why did you feel it was important to tell the story now?
Precisely because it is 50 years ago. I think it's really important to look back on that first direct action of women's liberation, to see what they were trying to achieve, and then to take stock now and look back. What have we achieved? And to look forward, what have we still got to achieve, which is a lot. We've still got a long way to go. There was a very sad moment when I was in the run-up to the launch of the film, when I was doing lots of interviews, and a young BBC journalist was interviewing me, and she said that she'd gone to see the film with some colleagues from the BBC, and at the beginning of the film there's a speech by Sheila Rowbottom saying, we demand equal pay for equal work. And she said they all wanted to cry because they were still fighting for that. And so many women all over the world are still fighting for the rights that those women were fighting for in 1970. So it's important to take stock sometimes and think, wow, we've still got places, we've still got things to do. Even the other day, the wonderful Shadow Health Secretary, Dr. Is it Rosalind? I've forgotten her surname. She was talking to Matt Hancock in the Prime Minister's Question Times, and he's told her off for using a certain tone of voice. You know, what? He's a young man, and she wasn't using a certain tone of voice. So, you know, even today there's so much, you know, prejudice against women or women who are claiming authority for themselves.
Holly.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to go first, Gaby?
I was just going to say, I'm building on what Philippa said, so much has changed, and personally we're all standing on the shoulders of the women who did that, and we're raising children with the men who were brought up by the women who did that, so everything has changed in that way, but there's lots which hasn't, and it's very dangerous to see this as quaint and old-fashioned and think it's a battle that's been won just because in law you're supposed to pay women the same as men. You know, those things are not over. And that's another reason for doing it, is to celebrate achievement, but also to think, okay, don't let's get comfortable here because things get taken away, rights get rolled back, you know, and let's hold on to what we've got and push further. Sorry, Una.
Well, actually, I was going to say, you said it much more eloquently. I was going to say something similar, just saying, you know, it's so important to actually celebrate their story, because without women like them and like our mothers, we wouldn't have the privileges that we have. And actually, it's a story that so many people don't know. People did not know the story. And so many of my friends told me they never even heard of the story. So to allow that history of womanhood to be just erased because nobody actually mentions it or celebrates it or has it in the history books was wrong. I'm glad they made this film.
That's so well put, Una. And the other really important thing from my point of view, another point of view, is that I really wanted us to see that the Western idea of beauty got turned on its head in that competition. Yeah. You know, that Jennifer won, who is an astonishingly beautiful woman, but she's a black woman. And, you know, for that ideal of beauty to be turned on its head there in front of the whole world is quite an incredible thing. And that's another really important thing that I wanted to celebrate, we all wanted to celebrate in the film.
My absolute favourite line was, we were having a shit time in patriarchy, we're still having a shit time in patriarchy. It was my favourite line ever. So I've got another couple of questions from our audience. So Elspeth Hines says, so I don't know if any of you have been listening to it, but Louis Theroux's got a new podcast, which is pretty good. And he's been talking in lockdown to all the people that he wanted to be able to interview but hasn't yet. And Helena Bonham Carter was on the other day saying that she felt that the film industry was improving for women partly because there was an increased focus on good scripts, which results in good parts, which Misbehaviour is a very obvious example of. But do you think that's true?
Well, I hope it's true. I mean, there are so few women directors and film, and also editors and writers. You can go on the BFI, have got a fantastic thing where you can look up how many films have been directed by women since the records began in 1930. And unfortunately, it's 94.5% directed by men. So we've still got a hell of a long way to go. I think it has changed. It is changing, but I still think there's a long way to go. I really do. I mean, we want to hear from women's voices. We want women's voices in our world of filmmaking and storytelling. And also people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, you know, not just, there's an awful lot still to do, I think. Yeah. People want different age groups.
Different age groups. You want to let more voices in, more voices with different racial, cultural, class backgrounds, as well as gender. And I think as well, so working with someone like Philippa, so the only woman director to get 2 BAFTA to get any BAFTA directing, and she happens to have got 2. But still, when we're talking about women and wanting to see more women directors, I also want to make sure that they also support the women directors that are actually already there, working their socks off to continue to be seen. And a lot of the new objectives are to get new people in, and I love new people coming in, but also help the ones that are already there grafting for years and just need a break.
And help.
And that's not limited to women, that's for everyone of different races, culture, and gender.
And also help all that brain drain. So I used to work in television, and I kind of opted out when I had children. And there are lots of me that have all that experience, and it's full of young women that will work like I would 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without noticing, like I didn't, that if you do that, anybody that's got children and is trying to take care of them can't work like that. So yes, that question was from Elspeth Hind. I don't know if I said that it was from Elspeth. And we have another question from Lorena Pino, who says, how do you think the film speaks to new generations? So coming from a factual, something that really happened in the past, how do you think younger people are going to react to this?
Young women have absolutely loved this film. It's been, I think, one thing that you said earlier, there aren't many films about young women. And when they're there, we devour them, like Little Women or whatever. So what we found in our test screening is that the young women absolutely loved it. And, even just from anecdotal evidence of doing all the screenings on the way up to the launch and all of our Q&As, young women absolutely love this film because they're seeing young women do stuff and they find it inspiring.
And, an assistant editor who I'm currently working with, she went to see the film in Notting Hill Gate Cinema, and she said on the only weekend it was open, and she said at the end of the film, the crowd just burst into spontaneous applause, young men and women, and middle-aged men and women, and she said it was amazing, so she wanted me to tell Philippa, and that was incredible, and it's just a shame that we haven't had that communal viewing of the film in a cinema setting, because that actually is where you feel the energy from the other people around you.
I got to see it in the cinema just before everything shut down, and it was divine watching it.
Yeah, it's like a collective experience.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get another little run somewhere.
Some very young women had no idea what a beauty contest at that point was, and were absolutely floored by particularly the bit where everybody had to turn their bottoms for the audience to make sure they'd seen both sides. Just couldn't believe it, couldn't get over that, kept going back to it, but just couldn't believe it ever happened. That's good that they can't believe it ever happened. I'm glad that in their world that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Although, Gaby, I'd like to ask the young women, why are they all putting their bottoms on Instagram? Stop photographing the bottoms. It's a new problem.
Maybe they feel that's a little bit more their choice, I don't know.
I think it's their choice. A friend of mine had a similar experience. She watched it with her 13-year-old daughter, who said, did people really make people do that? She just literally couldn't believe that people would parade around in a beauty contest. So that's quite a good thing. We've moved there.
That's a great thing. It was the thing that shocked my daughter the most, was them all turning round, and she was saying, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Yeah, really weird. But then I said, so is wearing an incredibly tight dress and incredibly uncomfortable shoes while the man next to you is wearing a nice comfortable suit. So, So I think that's the perfect place to end. I'd like to say huge thank you to you all. Thank you so much. And yeah, everybody should watch Misbehaviour. It is a wonderful, massively enjoyable film. And thank you very much for making it.
Oh,
Thank you very much for having us, Ollie. It's been really fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, BAFTA Film Festival. Ollie. Bye.